Hi everyone, I'm Jen, astrologer. Thanks for joining me today. So today we're talking about how to create the ultimate vacation blueprint. And this is by combining astrocartography and finding the best electional chart to go along with it. And it's really how you can get the best outcome, even when you have time constraints and any other constraints traveling on a difficult line. So we're going to begin by discussing the astrocartography part of it and traveling to a beneficial line and maybe a little more challenging line. So for this example, we're going to use traveling to a sun line and a Saturn line, right in between the two, and what we can expect, and also how the crossings also play a role in all of this. So when and then we're going to end up with using the electional astrology to try and find the best timing to really just ensure that we have a positive outcome, the best outcome that we could possibly have, really. So I'm using myself as an example so that you could see how my assessment plays out, because we are going to be documenting the whole trip. We're going to be, showcasing everything and kind of showing everything off. So we're going to go, house by house at the end and see what we should expect, and then see how it all plays out after that. So I'm going to, again, be traveling to a location that falls right in between my Sun MC line and my Saturn DC line. So I've traveled to my Sun MC line before and a couple times, and that has really been absolutely amazing. Those are some of the best times I've ever had in my entire life was on that line. Also was my Pluto line and my Mercury line. So I had a few lines there. Now, um, and I really did, because I felt like, a different person really being on that line, kind of like um, when if you were born in a different place, so kind of like a relocation chart to see what life would have been like if you lived there. So everything in my life after those vacations really changed my outlook on life, my purpose in life, my thoughts about the future, and my goals for the future. All of them changed after doing this. So, again, my Pluto line was there, so that had a lot to do with it. Very transformational. And I knew that something profound was going to happen. I just didn't think how much, especially only going there for, a week and then a week. And so, not a line that I was going to live on. So, this is really only about traveling to these lines. So but this will be my first time traveling to my Saturn line. So since I've already been to my Sun line, I kind of know what to expect a little bit there. But traveling to my Saturn line, I am a little bit worried because this is my Saturn descendant line. Saturn is known for being challenging and facing tough life lessons. And this is, on your DC, that is your relationships. That's your descendant. That's, your interactions with others, your relationships. And so it could be challenging for relationships. I am going with my husband, so we'll see how that plays out. Um, it's all about responsibility, Saturn, and patience and hard work. So being on a Saturn line can feel heavy. Um, and especially on the descendant with having to do with relationships, relationships can go from being fun and casual to being a lot of work, and can actually be tested when you're on a Saturn line. There could be control issues that come popping up, even like a coldness, maybe a lack of affection, maybe a little bit of distance there. But also, there's temptation and testing of commitments, kind of like the devil card in the tarot deck. So, it can be a test of will, of self control, of self discipline. And what's really funny about it is, excuse me, we're going to a hotel that says adults only, and I keep joking with my husband. I'm like, I don't know what kind of hedonistic, crazy place this is going to be, but anyway, um, we are going to behave ourselves. Trust me. So, excuse me. So, a visit to a Saturn line, especially when between Saturn and Sun lines, can be a good place to mentally resolve any father issues, any daddy issues that you might have from your past, any past trauma with that child father dynamic. And I'm not going to lie, I have Chiron in my fourth house. So I definitely do have paternal wounds that go back even, 4 decades, so about 40 years. These go back, and it's something that it's not there all the time, but it does pop its, evil little head. So going to this line, I hope is going to be, um, it's going to be difficult maybe because I'm going to be facing a lot of these tough, difficult maybe memories or struggles that I've had throughout the years, but maybe ultimately finding peace. So that would really be nice, to kind of just come to grips with that, finding some peace with it and finding some acceptance with it. So being on a Saturn line doesn't have to be all bad. So if you're in a committed relationship and not just, going out there for fun, um, traveling to this line can really deepen your connection even further, even more devoted to each other, and really just feel something, like I feel like I'm responsible for this person, they feel like they're responsible for you, and that loyalty, wanting to, just be true to them and, um, faithful to them, and also acts of service, wanting to do nice things for that person. So, and especially if that's your love language, that is going to be something that you probably would enjoy if you're in a committed relationship on a Saturn line. But of course, how this all plays out really depends on the planet's condition in your natal chart. So if it's debilitated, you can face, the shadow influences of the planet. But if it's dignified or in a good way, it could bring those positive benefits. And even Saturn, being, having that, uh, aura about Saturn always being bad and the, scary planet, it can also bring rewards. So my Saturn, for example, is, so I have a day chart, first of all. So Saturn isn't the major malefic in a day chart. So even though it is a malefic, it can be more constructive than challenging. So again, maybe working through some issues that you've had. It's also in not such a great house. So it's in my sixth house, which is a cadent house, and really one of the kind of worst houses it could be in, pretty much. And throughout my life, I've struggled with pain all the time, but it also has made me a good and devoted worker. And I do have a lot of willpower when it comes to, working out and that type of thing, and taking care of my health. So it's also sextile to my natal Venus, which for me, this really played out as finding my true love later in life as I got older. So that's that Saturn that could, be something happening later in life or something with an older person. So I've always said that my husband and I are fated to be together. And it's funny because it's due to all these chance encounters that we've had as strangers, dating back to when we were in our teens, but never getting together, never meeting each other. But just as we talk about stories from our past, we start remembering, okay, I was there. I remember you being there. And we didn't meet until our 40s, our mid 40s. Also, with my Capricorn ascendant, I've always related to Saturn. So I'm not scared of Saturn. I know there's going to be some work involved. It might not be as great of a vacation as my other ones were. But again, Saturn for me hasn't really been that challenging. So I've always related to Saturn, and it clearly steers my life. It is on my ascendant. I'm a Capricorn rising. So, and my husband is also a Capricorn sun, and that is in his on his MC. It's conjunct his MC. And then we have that connection there. It is a square, yes, but there is that connection with that Saturn. So we understand that we need to put a lot of work in. So we do put work into our relationship to keep our relationship strong. We do put a lot of work into our home. We work together really well. So we have that connection there. And we also have in our synastry chart, we have Venus conjunct Jupiter almost to the exact. So because of all this, I really believe, though, that I will get the more positive aspects, the most, rewarding experiences from that Saturn can provide, and our love will deepen, and maybe we'll grow even closer than that we already are. So, united even more physically and spiritually together. So I do look forward to that. Again, we'll see how it all plays out. So being also that I'm traveling between a Saturn and Sun line, I do plan on working. So this can be beneficial on especially either line. The sun is on my MC, so that's my sun MC line, and then my Saturn line. And Saturn is about putting in hard work. But I'm not going to be doing my normal job. I'm going to be doing what I love. I'm going to be traveling. I'm going to be doing astrology, and I'll be putting out a ton of content for you all to see. I'm going to be documenting the hotel that we stay in, the popular sites to go seeing, shopping, food, hikes we go on, whatever, different feelings that we have. So you definitely want to be sure to subscribe to the channel and definitely hit that notification bell because I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And in the end, we hope that you will experience where we're going and decide to travel there because of it, because of the things that you see playing out. So I think you'll be able to see also after watching this video and going through the houses at the end and how I think things might play out, you'll be able to see how it does work out. So being on a Sun MC line, um, it is said that it's a good place to build a body of work. So I do plan on putting out, like I said, a lot of content um, in my travel area of my chart of my channel. So definitely check that out because that one is going to keep getting the hits. And hopefully it will help spotlight the channel and it will engage with more viewers out there and so we can connect and grow the community together. And I would just also really love to connect with any astrologers that are out there as well. Especially being on my Saturn descendant line, I would love a collaboration or anything like that. I think that would be fantastic and a lot of fun for the viewers as well. So now, having been on my sun line before, I do know that you can tend to overspend. Um, I'm very guilty of that, and I just buy whatever I want. When I was on my sunline last, and I didn't give a care what it cost. If I like something, I bought it. So you can tend to overspend on things that just stand out to you, that also can make you stand out as a person. Things that, and I am prepared for that. So I know that this could happen. So I kind of prepare myself all year for our trips. And also between the Sun and Saturn line, I could really, though, face challenges with health. Um, I need to maybe step up and lead. So who knows what that could be, but because Saturn is in my sixth house, there could be some health issues there. Um, Going on hikes and whatnot could, you know, form a challenge. I could have to help somebody. So, there's that where that responsibility comes in. So we'll have to see how that all plays out. So a negative sun can also be overbearing. It can tend to not be, true to yourself as well. So, and really caving to the masses for attention and for views. So I have been on my sunline before, like I said, but I always try and stay true to myself and genuine to who I am. So my content will always be pretty much genuine. It's going to be me acting like I act, and no fake, no nothing, no saying things because the hotel wants me to. If it's crappy, you're going to hear that it's crappy. So we also are going to look at the crossing. So I'm going to share mine and my husband's since he doesn't have any major lines there. And a crossing can act as a square or just add a little bit of a little nuance to it. So my first crossing is my Jupiter Ascendant and my Uranus MC. Okay. So again, my first crossing is my Jupiter Ascendant on the Ascendant, my Jupiter AC, and my Uranus MC. So this could be exciting, adventurous, also abrupt changes. So things could change at the drop of a hat, and also to be keeps you mindful that you don't be careless because things can happen. And like I said, with Saturn in my sixth house, and because we're going to be doing a lot of outdoor activities like hiking and that type of thing, I have to be mindful to be very careful so that something bad doesn't happen, acting out on a whim. I'm not going to just all of a sudden decide to go bungee jumping or something like that. So Jupiter and Uranus crossings can also be related to technology. And on my MC line, it's putting out this content that I plan on putting out for you all to see can come with some setbacks, and I expect that as well. So there could be issues with internet access. There could be connecting Wi-Fi, that type of thing. And I am aware of that. So if I do have to wait until after I get back to put the content out, I will do that. But I'm going to try and do things as we go while we're there. So, but also this could really give you a sense of freedom to really be, who I am and genuine to myself. And I always try to do that in my videos anyway. Sometimes I know I say things that, maybe people don't like my views on things, and maybe some people do like my views on things. But I'm not going to lie and I'm not going to tiptoe around who I am, and I plan on keeping it that way. So the second crossing I have is my Pluto IC line and my North Node descendant line. So people I meet can be transformational. And this could be even fated meetings that we come into. So lastly, I have Mercury on my IC as well and my North Node descendant. So again, this can point to some destined event. So something unexpected. So for an example, when I was out in Montana last year, we were at a restaurant, random restaurant, and we were talking to a person at the table next to us, so we couldn't really see them. They were really like um, plot out. So now remember, Pluto is that kind of transformational, and then also the IC line is kind of your home. So, because that's the bottom of the chart. So that's in your home, usually like fourth house kind of issues. So we came to realize that, well, first of all, um, he lived in the town that I worked in. And I said, oh, I work in that town. He's like, oh, where do you work? And I told him where I worked at the time. And he said, I'm this person. And he was a person that I had worked with for like 10 years. And it just blew our mind. It blew everyone's mind in the restaurant around us. So it was like something just so crazy that you could never expect could happen. Seeing somebody, like, again, at a random restaurant, a random time, random place, that you knew for years, and meeting up with them. And so that's kind of that, ties to home. So there could be ties to home. Also, when I was on my Pluto IC line, we decided that we want to start pursuing living out that direction. So this could have a little bit to do with that as well. We're kind of trying to find a place to move out west, at least part-time anyway. So it's also about with Mercury on, Mercury connecting with community and building relationships and achieving goals through partnerships. So again, I would love to meet up with any astrologers out there, and maybe just partner with somebody, even somebody that works out there, and just do a little content that way. Because I think that could be really beneficial. I think it could be a lot of fun. So my husband, on the other hand, he's got his Mars IC crossing his Venus DC line. So this is sexuality, this is magnetism, um, deeper, passionate, more passionate, deeper, more passionate intimacy also. So, and also could end any past frustrations, some, um, maybe coldness that Saturn has and that Saturn can give, so that lack of affection kind of might change up a little bit here. This one, though, I'm not going to go into, and we're not going to document any of that, so you won't find out how that plays out. Anyway, also, he has his Mars IC and his Neptune AC. So this could be difficulty focusing, maybe not really feeling quite himself. Um, I know that when we were out west before, he had difficulty finding places, and he's got to be the best at directions. So this could be, brought up in that kind of way. Also, maybe a confusion or just having things from back home, because we do have that Mars icy issues back home that could continue to, you know, rear their head and keep him from focusing and having the best time um, on our vacation. So, how do we ensure that we will have the most positive effects of these lines and, you know, not the shadow side and have like the detrimental effects? So that's where transits and also picking the right time using election charts can come in. So it can be difficult to get anything perfect, of course. There's no perfect chart. All charts have their difficulties. Everything has something that you can't get exactly perfect. And sometimes you do have, like I said, time constraints, date constraints, and that type of thing, and even, you know, places you can go. So traveling to a Saturn line, Saturn is retrograde. So here's an issue already. So this is kind of again going towards bringing stuff up from the past. So again, those daddy issues could be rearing their ugly head, or anything else that you struggled with in the past that you may have to, like, you know, come face to face with, um, as well as all the other outer planets are also retrograde as well. So Venus also is in detriment. So no matter what chart we pick, it's going to be in detriment because it is in Scorpio. So, and also it's trine my natal Saturn. So my natal Saturn by my natal chart is sextile to Venus, but this has a Venus in detriment trining my natal Saturn. So this can play out in a couple different ways. You know, it isn't a harmonious aspect, but it also can um, bring up anxieties and insecurities bubbling to the surface. But I think those will be short lived and easy to kind of work through, to find balance, to find a little bit of mental harmony. So I don't think that's going to be a super issue. Neptune will also be opposite my natal sun, which can be, um, you know, an intuitive, mystical awareness, but also a need for solitude. And when we are on vacation, we do like to do things by ourselves. And even further than that, in the mornings, I like to just go off and be by myself. So that's not anything strange. If I need time alone, my husband always, you know, is fine with that. He never has any problem with it. Lets me go for my walks, lets me, you know, I'll walk into town instead of driving into town, and then we'll go home together. So those are things that, um, you know, could come up, could show their heads, you know. But we are going to Sedona. I don't know if I said that earlier. I think I said that in the prior video. But I think Sedona is known to be one of the most spiritual places. So I think this is going to be a good time to kind of really feel that spirituality, to be open minded, to be able to, you know, take those downloads, to be by yourself and not, you know, sometimes stepping away from like music, action, all that, sometimes just taking a step back can really just help that intuition, because you're more susceptible to not missing the things that are trying to, you know, come out and come, you know, be told to you. So, um, so what we're going to do is we're going to now look at the chart that we chose, and I'm going to explain why. So we're going to go house by house, and, you know, we have one early chart that is about 4 a.m. and then we have one a little bit later that's at 4:45. And surprisingly, it does make a big difference of um, how things can work out just by that time, because it changes the ascendant, it moves planets to different houses. So it really makes a big difference to find the right chart. So I know it is only 45 minutes, but that can really make or break a good vacation, a good electional chart, really. So the criteria you want to keep in mind is really to, you know, look for your malefics. Put those in kind of the houses that are relevant to what you're doing. So because we're on going on a vacation, putting the houses that don't have anything to do with, you know, travel. So not in the third and ninth. We're going as a couple, so trying to keep them out of the first and seventh houses. Um, Maybe not having Saturn in the fifth house for fun and entertainment. And, you know, if I am going to be putting work out, Saturn might not be so bad in um, like the 10th house, but it's, you know, and really kind of trying to find the best places for the malefics in these charts. So, but you also want the rising ruler, so the ascendant ruler and the moon in good condition with each other and in the relevant houses. So, to the event. So, travel, for example, the third and ninth, like I said, you want good planets and the positive aspects that are going on with the planets that are in these houses. So, my two charts, I did do in whole sign because I had them in Regimentalis, but because of the way um, the houses fell, they were just way too similar, and I just wanted to really fine tune as much as possible. So house by house, the 4 a.m. and the 4:45. So the first house, so the 4 o'clock, is in the ascendant of Leo. So the ruler of the sun is in Virgo in the second house, and is sextile to Mars in the 12th house. Not too bad. So then in the later chart, we have the first house with the ascendant in Virgo with the ruler of Mercury. Mercury does have a lot to do with travel. Mercury is that travel, kind of the more third housey type. Mercury's in the second house, and we also have Libra sextile to Jupiter. So Libra is in the second house, sextile to Jupiter. So I like those. I like Mercury being in the second house. And we have, or not Libra sextile Jupiter, Venus sextile Jupiter. Um, so I'm happy with that placement. And with that ascendant in Leo, that means the second house is Virgo. So we have Mercury in Virgo, which can mean that you spend a little bit less because the second house is about, money and things, and it's a little bit, but we'll get into that with the second house. So then we want to look at the moon and as the secondary ruler. So we have the ruler of the ascendant as the first ruler, always the moon as the secondary ruler. So the moon is in the sixth house of our early chart, and that is a cadent house, and the sixth house is not a great house, so I didn't really like that. Um, and in the moon in our later chart is in the fifth house of entertainment, fun, creativity, and that's like your needs and um, things that make you feel good, food, and doing those kind of things. Um, and it's also sextile Venus trying to ascend it. So both of them have so it's sextile Venus and then trine the ascendant. So, but they both are square, have a square to Jupiter. So that's kind of negative, but I'm still going to go with the later time for that one. So with the first house, we're going to go with later time. The moon, we're going to go with the later time. So then we go on to the second house. So again, that's finances, shopping, and that kind of thing. So we already know that with the going to a sun line, you can tend to overspend. So in our second house, in our early chart, we have Virgo. The ruler in the third is in a good and it's in a good placement. That's Mercury, but it is opposing Saturn, but it is also sextile Jupiter. So kind of a wash, but I do like that placement of being in Virgo. Then the second house in our later chart is in the sign of Libra, where the ruler is in the third, and it's in detriment. So that's Venus. Venus is in detriment in the third house in the sign of Scorpio. But sextile to the moon, and the ascendant is square to Pluto. So this could be overeating. That can be, and of course, you know, in Libra, it can tend to overspend. So we have the second house Libra, which can tend to overspend, to be showy, and the third with Venus in Scorpio. But they are in good aspects to the ruler of that. So Venus is in a good aspect with the ruler of Scorpio, which is Mars, and Mars is in the 12th house. So Mars is kind of tucked away. So that's good. So in going back to the early time, again, Virgo in the second house is more practical. And then, you know, I kind of am leaning towards that one. So we have the first in the moon for the later time, and we have the second house for the earlier time. So then we go on to the third, which is travel. Now, this is the short distance traveling. This is like the car ride to the airport and to the hotel. Um, we want to see how it kind of bodes with the ninth house and how they, are they in harmony with each other. So in our early chart, it's in Libra. So Libra is our third house ruler, and Mercury is in the third house, and the ruler Venus is in the fourth house. And it's got good aspects, but it is square to Pluto. Not really too worried about that. We can't get away from that. So there's nothing we can do about changing houses or anything. The third house in our later chart is Scorpio, and it's got Venus in Scorpio. The ruler of Scorpio is Mars, and Venus is making a good aspect to it. So those are good things. So I am going to probably give the third house to the later time. So really only the second house is looking good so far. And if I have to, go with the second chart and I overeat or overspend, it happens. It's vacation. So then I'm going to tie in the ninth house. So we're just going to skip a little bit. So the ninth house in the first chart, the early chart, we have Aries. And the ruler is Mars. And that is in the 12th house, the cadent house. Kind of tucked away though. So, I mean, it's not in a great house, but it's tucked away kind of in an irrelevant house to what's going on. But it is sextile the sun, which is the ruler of our ascendant in that early chart. Saturn is also in the ninth house in this chart. That's not great. So I don't want Saturn to have flight delays or any kind of thing like that. But again, the ruler being Mars is in a good aspect with Venus. Or they don't really have any real aspects to each other, so it's okay. So then we move on to the ninth house for our later chart, and that is in the sign of Taurus. The ruler of Taurus is Venus, and that is in my third house with good aspects. It's sextile to Jupiter, and it's in a good aspect with the moon as well. So I'm going to have to go with that house because I think, you know, it's more beneficial. I think that the flights and everything might be a little nicer. Maybe the hotel's going to be a little bit nicer because you don't know what you're getting when you're, booking these hotels online. So hopefully that will be a little more pleasant than being in Aries where it could be a little bit more aggressive. So we're going to go with the second chart in that one. So again, we're going to skip around. So we're going to go to our more relevant houses and check the placements of our benefics and our malefics. So in our fifth house, this is our fun, our creativity, going out to eat, doing our adventures. In our first chart, we have Sagittarius, the sign of fun, and the sign of Sagittarius. And Sagittarius is all about fun. So I love that. So I was like, okay, so this might make or break it. The ruler of that fun sign of Sagittarius is in the first house, but it is squaring the MC. And like I said, I'm going to be putting on a lot of content, so I don't want to have issues there. It also is squaring the point of fortune in this chart. Don't really like that as well. And it's semi-square to the moon. So you don't want to have, our squaring the moon that's in the fifth house because we want to have fun. We want to have, a good time. It's not in the fifth house, fourth house. So anyway, the fifth house in our later chart is in Capricorn. The ruler of that chart or of that sign is Saturn. That moves Saturn out of the ninth house and into the eighth house in the sign of Aries. So it takes it out of that travel area, that malefic, and puts it into a better area. So it is in the sign of Aries, which would be bad anyway. So we're kind of stuck with that. And it is retrograde, so we're stuck with that too. But stuck in the eighth, it's kind of pushed away and a little bit irrelevant. But it is trine to Jupiter, which is good. And I do like the malefics tucked away, like I said. But it can, again, show anxieties coming up, worry, and, that kind of thing. But it's, again, I'm kind of getting prepared, especially looking at all these placements of kind of facing some issues from the past, especially those, maybe daddy issues or any kind of thing like that popping back up. So then we move on to our seventh house, which is our relationships. Now, in our early chart, it's Aquarius, and the ruler again is Saturn. Saturn in that chart is in the ninth, so not good. It is trying to Jupiter in the first, but squaring Mercury in the third. So don't like that at all. Um, Again, it's bringing up delays, obstacles, that kind of thing, and just bringing up that negativity that we don't want. In our later chart, it's in Pisces. Now, Pisces, the ruler is Jupiter, which is in our 12th house, and it's trying to Saturn in the 8th. So they are in not good houses, but they are making a positive aspects to each other. So that's positive. And they are sextile to Mercury. So meeting people and collaborations might go well. So that could be something. So then we move to the 10th and 11th houses. And those are the, pretty much like the last houses we're going to look at for this chart. So the 10th and 11th in our early chart, since I'll be working on content and stuff, like I say, in recognition, we have the MC in the 10th, and it's conjunct our point of fortune, and that's in our early chart. And but it is square to Jupiter, and semi-square to Neptune. So things might be confusing. I might not be, we might bump into issues there. Might be a little bit too over the top. So the ruler of the 10th is Venus, because it is in the early chart, it is in Taurus. So then the ruler of the 11th is Mercury. So, I like both as far as putting out content because, harmonious, and they're both nice, pleasant planets. But then we move to the later chart. So we have the 10th and the 11th. The 10th is in the sign of Gemini, and then the 11th is in the sign of Cancer. But the MC in that chart is actually in Taurus in the ninth. So I really like that because it is travel, and we're going to be doing a lot of things about traveling, videos about traveling and that type of thing. So I do like that. Gives some similarity to the, early chart with Cancer in the 11th, though. It adds, and with Mars, even though Mars is a malefic, it does make good aspects. So it could show that I have a lot of drive and I'm not going to be lazy. So that's good. So 6-1, we're going with the later chart. And then finally we have, Uranus conjunct the MC here, and that can be a crapshoot. So we don't know what's going to happen there. But with the MC trine the Sun, sextile to Neptune, but then there's that semi-square to Saturn. So like I said, there's always some negatives that go along, but I think we're going to cut it a little short and, hope for the best and not hit traffic, but we're going to go with the later time. So let me know what you guys would choose in the comments. If you want to pull them up, it is for the date is the 19th of September. So you can pull up those charts. You put those rising signs in, and it's 4:45, and it's all New England time. So 4:45, and or the later one, and 4 o'clock is the early one. So you can kind of look if I went through them kind of fast, and they might be confusing. So let me know what you guys would choose. Let me know what you think. And I hope you are all excited. I hope you are just hitting that notification bell so that you can come and visit Sedona with us, and maybe you will get so much out of it as well. So again, be sure to like and subscribe, give some love to the channel. I appreciate every view, every like, every subscription, and definitely, you want to hit that notification bell. So let's visit Sedona together, guys, with a peaceful mind, a positive, positive words, make things light, make things fun, and have love in your heart, but also have faith in yourself and have faith in the chart that you choose. And I will see y'all soon. Bye.